Good afternoon. So my speech will be mostly speaking about to go to gigawatt, you need a plan. And a plan is a mix of experience, product and partnership, technology value proposal, and of course, key milestone. And that's, I think, the challenge that we have within the hydrogen community, and that's the challenge we decided to address within McPhy, to go step by step, but be ready for bringing electrolysis to the market expectation, which are going bigger and bigger because R&D has been done. So I will skip fast because most of people I see in the audience know us. McPhy is 10 years experience. We have a strong background. We are a French company and a European company and assets, and also setting supply chain in China. We are backed by industrial partners, EDF, as you know, who made also the announcements of Dynamics with a strategic partnership. We have Denora's advanced electrodes also backing up McPhy, Hydrogen Council, and we have more than 90 people and a growing team which are pushing the company forward. First experience, McPhy has already 16 megawatts in contract and 13 megawatts in operation. And that's the key assets in terms of skills and bringing the knowledge on our technology and bringing to the customer for the next step. 6 megawatts in operation with Audi since 2013. That was atmospheric technology, and we moved to the pressurized technology because one of our key learnings is that pressure is a good way to make the switch to SMR, which is already working at 25 to 30 bar, maintaining fast response system. We delivered 1 megawatt and it's in operation in Germany, and I start, of course, with the German reference, with Energiedienst. It's already commissioned. It's on a hydropower plant close to Basel. We have 4 megawatts, and we are very proud to have this reference in Hebei, close to the next Olympic Games city, Zhangjiakou 2022. And this is our China's team and partners. It's already installed. It will be commissioned in June. And it's the first step of a 10 megawatt project. So the engineering is done for 10 megawatt, and that's our way to scale up, going step by step. And this is one of the key projects that enabled us to have this vision for bigger platform. We have 1 megawatt in Fos-sur-Mer in power to gas. We have 0.5 megawatts in operation with RRG as well in Austria. Now, what is the industry? And we discussed that yesterday. I heard the other elevator pitch, so I will go very fast. The volumes are very big. We speak about 40 gigawatt, but I made a calculation. 40 gigawatt will only address maybe 10% of the CO2 reduction we need for hydrogen. So it's even bigger, but it's a good milestone. And of course, we focus on that in the coming 10 years. It can happen. I went and I worked before on the solar industry, and I saw what it happened in the next 15 years. So we are just at this beginning. The value proposal of McPhy, and that's the beginning of the plan. First, the right product with the right reliability. 30 bar, I explained. So alkaline, because there is a good track record for duration and lifetime. And that's the kind of product that we have, which is already qualified by some key players. We have confidentiality agreements, so we cannot disclose that, but it will be done in May and in June for several projects. And we have a very big pipes of units which require this kind of solution. This solution is scalable. It's 20 megawatts, but it's used as a cluster. A cluster can be multiplied by 2, 3, 4, or 5, and then you reach 100 megawatts. You have a standard product, so for operation, installation, and maintenance, you use the same metrics, and that's why we wanted to have this standardized technology. Now, how to go bigger? So experience is there, the product is there, so we defined some key milestones. As you understood, the last years have been to have the modules from 2 megawatts to 10 megawatts with the current reference that we have. We updated the design of our platform for 10 megawatt to 20 megawatt, leveraging what we presented last year. We doubled the current density in our stack. So one stack now is 1 megawatt, and the former generation was 0.5 megawatt. So We mitigate the risk with that. We have the 20 megawatt cluster, and we are already working, it's a long-term R&D, on 100 megawatt platform with bigger stacks and balance of plants, which could go to gigawatt scale. What is important is the next 5 years. And what we have in mind for the next 5 years is a real industrial and supply chain plan. The key asset that we have is the stack manufactory in Italy that we have. So it's like the engine production plant. That's the core business. It can already run on one shift on 100 megawatts. And when we will go to free shift, we have 300 megawatts, so one stack per day. It's already designed. The plant is there. We already run with 20 megawatts, but we can go bigger. We can have external storage capacity to go up to 500 megawatts. A second asset is the supply chain. We have strategic already supply agreement with electrodes. No limitation because we are working with De Nora, who has 7 plants, 7 gigawatt capacity. We have supply agreement with our transformer rectifier company, big company who can also push forward the growth. And we have also supply agreement with some subcontractor for piping and separators for balance of plants in Germany, in France, and I hope by the summer in China. So we are already ready to go 100 megawatt next year, 200 megawatt in 2 years, and hit 300 megawatt by 2021, 2022. Without investment, it's already done. And we just have to hire step by step. So to go bigger, it's a question of strategic planning, getting the knowledge, having partnership with customer to anticipate the needs, and then put the investment at the right moment. Thank you for your attention, and very happy to share the scene with my colleagues, and then have the Q&A.
Thank you, Bertrand. I can take over your microphone and pass it on. Next up on stage, we'll be talking with Carsten Krause, Managing Director of AREVA. Carsten, you have the stage.
Yep, you're welcome. Here is it. This is the way to go. How it works? Now I have. Okay, here we are. So. Okay, already 30 seconds gone. AREVA H2Gen. First, I want to explain where we are come from. So we are a French company based in Paris. Our shareholders are AREVA, Smart Energies, and ADEM. So our base is in Les Ulis. It's in the south of Paris. There we have our factory and production side, and we have in Germany, in Cologne, and also in Berlin, we have a subsidiary for projects in the German-speaking market. But we are on the market worldwide, even if it's the US or Asia. But the main focus just today, it's in Europe. Here you see a few pictures from our factory. So we have R&D there. We develop our own stacks. And we have the production site in Les Ulis. We have our own connection, 2.5 megawatt, but up to 6 megawatt to test our electrolyzer in our factory. And now I want to present the production before I want to come to our project. So here you see we have a production line, a product line from 25 kilowatt up to 1 megawatt in one container, plug and play, as you can say. Very cost efficient and high dynamic. I will tell you more later. And yeah, it's a product line. And if you go to multi-megawatt, we have a special design. But the main focus today is to present you a 1 megawatt new system. This is a power to gas economics. So we have the challenge just today in Germany about the sector coupling. I guess you have heard a lot about. And now we are in a project called MessQuest. This is a huge lighthouse project in Germany. You see all the partners they are in. And the main focus of this project is not the electrolyzer. We are a part. We are at the beginning because we are between the electric grid and the methane. Here in this project, we want to produce green methane for example, for going into the mobility for ships, for combustion engines. And you see all the partners. And our project is, or our product in this is a 1 megawatt system. So we call it 200% for the German Energiewende, because in our case we have a production of 100%. For example, if the 100% means 400 kilos a day going into, for example, for fueling station for buses, but also with the same system we are in the grid balancing. Means we go for the frequency control reserve, for the primary control, and the aim of this project is to earn money from the hydrogen, from the production of the hydrogen, but also to earn money to get revenues from the grid. For example, at the moment with 1 megawatt could be between 70 and 100,000 a year. So this is an early market business case to have the production, but also to earn money from this grid. And you can see we built it up, this project, with a partner also in Germany. We work together with Fraunhofer ISE and also iGas to build up this system. It will build up in Höchst, chemical park in Höchst. It's near to Frankfurt. And together with them, we go to the primary reserve market. That's a new project I want to present you, and I'm happy to call with you, to talk with you in the next 30 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next on the stage is, check my list here, Matthias Kramer von Hoeller, Electrolyzer GmbH. Matthias, welcome. The microphone.
Thank you. Welcome everyone, and thanks a lot for the opportunity to talk a little bit about Hoeller Electrolyzer and our products. Compared to the two companies you heard before, we are a startup. The company was founded only 2 years ago, and we are located in the northern part of Germany, in Wismar, a small city on the Baltic Sea. And the mission is really to help make the production of green hydrogen more cost efficient than it was in the past. Our strategy is really to focus on the stack itself. That's where we see our core competence. So we understand the stack, we give out the specifications to the suppliers, and then the assembly, the testing is the core of what we do apart from the design. And so we are a component supplier to the system integrators and then to the H2 producers. Our stack will be more efficient than what is on the market today. We have a number of IP and innovation behind it. And what I would briefly like to show is the 4 areas which we are working on. It's around the MEA, it's around the plates, and it's also around the transport layer. Here we have several ideas, innovations in place. Some of them already patented, some of them are already under development with partners. Besides the construction inside the stack, we are also on focusing on the assembly of the stack. And those two things combined will lead to a significant reduction of the costs. This is our product line, Prometheus. As I said, we are still under development or in the development phase. So hopefully by the end of next year, we will have our smallest stack available, and then the other sizes to follow 4 to 6 months later. Yeah, that's our approach to the whole topic. Happy to take any questions. And I would also like to welcome you to our booth 72 here in the orange zone of the fair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I can pass that on to the next person. Up next on the stage is Henrik Steen Peterson, Executive VP for Sales at Green Hydrogen. Henrik, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do, a little bit about green hydrogen, where we are. Basically, we are a Danish company established 2007 and always had the focus on pressurized alkali systems. We want to do scalable standard modules to bring down the cost, and this also shows that we have brought down the cost in the production figures that we'll talk a little bit later on. We have a focus from the beginning, not just on the technology, but to use the technology to make business cases for our partners and for the end users. So the rapid return on investment has been a focus from day one. So this is a part that we focus on and not to the benefit of all our network. The way we reach the market is clearly through a partnership model. So we work with different partners in different countries in order to be able to reach, have a bigger reach in the market without being a big company. As of today, we are still a small Danish-owned company in Denmark, but of course we have bigger ambitions, but we want to grow with our partners and we grow step by step. Basically, we have two product lines. The most important that we focus more and more on now is the alkaline system, where we have three systems now, A30, A60 and A90. So basically 30, 60 or 90 normal cubic meter per hour. What we have, since the name of the company is Green Hydrogen, we've been focused on being able to work with the dynamics from green hydrogen or green electricity from the beginning. So we have the dynamics from very high dynamics equaling other electrolyzers in an alkaline system. We have a pressurized, so we deliver at 35 bar, and at the same time we have a 10-year lifetime on the stack, which is important when we talk about return on investment and business opportunities. All the systems are complete systems. They come with the dryer and the deoxer, so it's already very clean and very dry when it comes out of the systems. And basically in 2 square meters, you have 200 kilos of clean green hydrogen every day. And of course, it's easy to do a modular approach. You put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you do a N+1, depending on what kind of redundancy you want. You can tie all the systems together, and it's very easy to work with them. The PEM system that we have is also to have knowledge about the technology. These are mainly, it's a small system making just 1 normal cubic meter, but it's aimed at off-grid universities, small applications. But it gives us a knowledge and about the efficiency and the possibilities that the PEM can give us. To do, let's say, have the OPEX very low, it's important that we also focus on that the systems are very easy to operate. And to do this, it's important to have the right tools to remotely manage and operate the systems. The systems are designed to be automatically run without any human intervention. And this way you can also put them at remote locations as you want and control them using your smartphone or a standard, as long as we got a good IP connection. The system can be set up from a small one unit, or you combine several units as you want, but you still have the same software to control everything. If you want to do grid balancing, or if you do partial load, or if you want to take the peaks, you can do whatever you want. It's basically just a matter of how you configure the software and do the setup inside. And of course, the system can also work with external systems, standard interfaces. If it's a Profibus or Modbus or CAN-bus or whatever that you want to give the signals, we can do that. Like we can work with the Energinet, for instance, in Denmark. If you want to do grid balancing, they can connect it directly remote and use it for this. When we take a quick look at the market, this is from Hydrogen Council, their view of the market. We see that the greatest demands we have right now are in the transport sector, and we see on top we see that we have put in our products line that we have, and we also see we have a plan that when the market will expand, when they will be more mature, we will have bigger and bigger modules in order to answer to them. But we want to be faithful to our philosophy to have a modular, scalable systems from the start, which is easy to transport, easy to integrate, and easy to operate. Because it all comes down to business. If we cannot produce cheap enough, it doesn't matter. A way for us to reach the market is through a global network of partners, and we are still, of course, looking for more and more partners, because we see that many applications, if it's in the maritime, it's in the off-grid, if it's the transport, if it's the energy storage, we see more and more markets are opening up in different countries at different speed in different countries, because there are different regulations. So we follow actually the market, we follow our partners that are there, and we will continue to do that, to find the right partners in the right areas for the right applications. And then we will be more than happy to work with them to bring our knowledge and bring the fuel that will be able to fuel the hydrogen society. We have done some calculations, because it all comes down to the price of hydrogen. What is the price per hydrogen when you produce locally so you can consume, which will give you a business enabler to start new businesses. When we look at the different models we have, or we go a little bit bigger, we take a standard 10 years period, we take 6,000 hours per year, include service and maintenance, and also the electricity price based at 40 euros. We end up at a price around, let's say, 3.5 euros per kilo produced green hydrogen on site, which really makes a good, solid basis to do business in different areas. And you can produce locally and control remotely as you want, but you skip all the transportation, the logistics, and you can really use the hydrogen locally in the market where it's needed. So I'm just about wrapping up, I think.
Okay.
We want to democratize the future power production. It's nothing to do, let's say, with technology, but we've seen it's been done with wind, it's been done with sun energy, and we can do the same with hydrogen. We don't want to do what has been done with the fossil. We really want to spread it out. We really want to decentralize, so every city, every town can have its own local production from renewable energy. Let the nature transport the energy in the air or in the sun, and then we will catch it locally and make the fuel locally, which will then be consumed locally. I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Henrik. We can pass the microphone on to the next person in line here. Next up on stage is Vaitea Cowan, who's marketing at Enapter. And last time we saw each other was in the United States. Welcome back.
Hello.
I'm sure it's coming. There you go.
Or maybe, okay.
There we go.
Perfect.
Hello.
Great. Hello. So I'm Vaitea. I'm one of the co-founders of Enapter. And if you should remember 3 things about us: our unique technology, our scalability concept, and our ease of integration. We are creating the building blocks for the future of energy. What does this mean? It is making the most cost-effective electrolyzer for small to medium-sized applications. How do we do it? We have a unique technology. Our team of chemists invented the anion exchange membrane electrolyzer, and it is available on the market today. It safely separates the hydrogen from the oxygen, and what is unique about it is that it requires no noble metals for high performance and good lifetime. It also has a very simple balance of plant that allows us to keep our manufacturing cost low. Each electrolyzer produces 500 liters an hour, or 0.5 cubic meters an hour, at a power consumption of 2.4 kilowatt. Our output pressure is a pre-compressed hydrogen at 35 bar, and we achieve a purity of 99.95% up to 99.99999% with an optional dryer. The best thing that our system integration partners love is that we can use filtered tap water. We don't require any complicated DI water systems. So our electrolyzers are small, they're modular, and they're flexible. One will produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen a day. What is about our scalability approach is that we give you the freedom to stack as many electrolyzers as you want. Stack them freely according to your hydrogen needs. And who uses our electrolyzer? We partner with system integrators that integrate our electrolyzers for backup energy storage, seasonal energy storage, as well as microgrid, remote sites, and even small mobility applications. We also enable industrial partners to create hydrogen for other uses. If we take a look at some examples, with Tiger Power, we integrated our electrolyzer in a containerized solution to provide clean energy access in countries like Uganda. Our electrolyzer is combined with solar panels as well as fuel cell and batteries to provide clean rural electrification. Another fantastic use case for hydrogen is seasonal energy storage. In France, for example, in the Alps, in the summer, there's always sun. Always, almost. But in the winter, as you can see here, snow is covering the solar panels. So the hydrogen is allowing this mountain cabin in a completely isolated area to be operational and accessible year-round. Another great business case that we see growing is replacing diesel generators with on-site hydrogen production. Here, we have in Malaysia one of our electrolyzers integrated in a green telco station. Mobile operators can eliminate fuel logistics and cut cost by producing their hydrogen on site. Green hydrogen also has a role to play to provide heat. Our latest electrolyzer is producing, 8 of them, are producing 4 cubic meters an hour of hydrogen that is fed directly into the boiler of nearby apartments in Rozenburg in the Netherlands. Most recently as well, our customers are starting to use our electrolyzers for small mobility applications. This is a small station for refueling drones, and it's being tested right now. This is the future we envision. A future where fossil fuels are no longer required to produce energy. It is a carbon-free lifestyle that is showcased, for example, here at the Pisuea House. This is our lighthouse project, off-grid, showcasing residential energy storage. Most recently, we upgraded the whole system with our electrolyzers, as well as our energy management system. The energy management system that we developed allows us to understand the electrolyzer and the environment that it operates in. It allows easy integration of our modules, and a great aspect of it is that these stacked individual electrolyzers, you can control them as one big electrolyzers. We can combine different energy devices, the solar panels, the inverters, the sensors, and the electrolyzer. And our communication module will allow them to communicate with each other, as well as remote control and manage them. This is all done over a secure network. And if you're curious to understand more about it, we have a fantastic team in Hall 12 waiting to tell you more about it at 45 booth 7. This is our team. We are 55 today, growing very quickly since beginning in 2017. And we are in Pisa, Berlin, and Chiang Mai. This is our electrolyzer. Stack them freely for cost-effective green hydrogen production. Order yours today, and we can deliver it in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, Andreas Frömmel, who is Vice President Sales and Marketing at Sunfire. Welcome back.
Welcome, everybody. Happy that you are still in the elevator. And during the next floors, I want to explain you all the details about our technology, our products, going through the data sheets, explaining everything about our company. No, I'm joking. I want to present you 5 facts to you, and it's up to you which 3 of them you would remember later on, and you can make me happy if you have those 3 in mind after my speech. Here you have these facts. So the electrolyzer, the solid oxide electrolyzer of Sunfire is now in a megawatt scale, and we are moving next year to the multi-megawatt scale commercial projects. not anymore R&D. Even if this is a solid oxide electrolyzer, we are on a megawatt scale. That's a fact you should hold in mind. And with our technology, we have game changer products because we provide the highest efficiency using steam for the electrolyzer process with the renewable energy. And for such, we have lower infrastructure costs on the renewable energy side. We provide a technology, and all alternative technologies in electrolyzer business needs 40% more electrical power for the same amount, the same volume of hydrogen. That's an important fact, and this is a potential that we will be able to achieve the cost of the fossil hydrogen in an industrial area. That's important. In an industrial area, we have the potential, we are able to achieve that in the future. In addition to the normal, usual and well-known electrolyzer business, we can do the co-electrolyzers, which means we would add to the hydrogen also CO2, and we would get syngas out of that, means CO and hydrogen. And by having that, we could go in a normal infrastructure of a refinery, and with several processes, including Fischer-Tropsch, we would get out e-crude, which means synthetic CO2 neutral crude oil, I would say. So we would replace fossil oil, and we would avoid to extract new fossil CO2 out of the ground by having, at the end of the game, synthetic fuels, synthetic waxes, kerosene, and this brings us in a position to provide the power or the fuels to decarbonize transport areas which could not decarbonize by a direct electrical approach. So these are the 5 facts about the company, and I want to illustrate that relative to the reduction of renewables we would need. As you heard, since we have a higher electrical efficiency, we need less renewable energy, and by such we would reduce the footprint for the renewable energy production, as well as, of course, also the capex. And also, since we achieve, for instance, the 200 norm cubic meter per hour hydrogen with only 750 kilowatt capacity of the electrolyzer, we would also reduce the footprint on site for the electrolyzer. And this makes us suitable for industrial purposes, for having the electrolyzer side by side with a steel mill, like you see in the next picture. Salzgitter is an example. Now we are moving to the megawatt scale. A steel mill decarbonizing the steel by using green hydrogen. This makes us suitable also for refineries to being side by them and using the renewable energy to decarbonize the traditional fuels. And with e-fuels means carbon neutral diesel, kerosene and so on, we could help to achieve the Paris goals in these sectors of the energy use. Here you see a picture in our backyard where we did the first proof of concept. It's long ago, and now we are moving to larger units, and our approach right now is to have a 20 megawatt power to liquid plant in Norway. Why Norway? Because there we have a refinery ready for that, and hydro 24/7, and this brings us in a good situation that Norway could use the e-fuels or export them. So coming back to your task, 3 of that you should remember later on. I will go through that in again. We are in a phase of megawatt scale. We are moving to commercial projects. We have the highest efficiency of electrolyzers, which brings us in a position that alternative technologies needs 40% more electricity. Therefore, we have lower in a total view on such an installation. We have lower cost for the infrastructure, means renewable infrastructure. We have lower cost for the footprint on site. And we are the one able to achieve comparable cost with fossil hydrogen in the future in industrial sites. And we have the co-electrolyzer. In one unit, we could take the steam plus CO2 to bring out syngases for power to liquid applications. Thank you so much, and thanks for remembering all these facts.
Thank you. It's time now to invite all our participants back up on the stage to join us. I see some of the people from yesterday are here as well. That's going to be an interesting conversation. For those of you who weren't here yesterday, there should be 6 participants, and all of the microphones returned. That's wonderful. We're missing one person. I'm not sure who's snuck off. Oh. There he is. Hello, Bertrand. Okay, just for everyone's information, why am I sort of retweaking the discussion? Yesterday we talked about large things first. So there is a project, an Electrolyzer Alliance, 40 gigawatts. There's this notion that we can decarbonize the industry and so on, and these are all productive goals, and they're very important. I'm not belittling them, but when you ask the manufacturers, and there's a lot of big manufacturers around, how close are we to being able to generate that volume of electrolyzers? We're a long way. We've got a long way to go. If we turn this around and we look at it the other way, there are certain areas in the world and countries where we leap stages in development. We think of the telephones. First we set up the wires, then we got the phones, and it was great in the 40s and 50s. You see them on the movies talking to each other. Then we see certain countries where, why would you install wires? They went digital and smartphone instantaneously. They didn't mess around with the stuff that we had because we had the options. So I'm talking about beginning in remote regions where you have this elegant, perfect circle. You have renewable energy as a resource, you have an electrolyzer, you have a storage device, and you have abilities to use that power. A lot of you do also remote applications, and I'm going to return to this because it also addresses the grid network necessary for fueling. That is there a business model for a remote fueling station that uses local renewable energy, provides storage on site rather than waiting for a hydrogen grid that spans the whole country for automobile applications. So let's start small and local. Hoeller provides PEM stacks for decentralized hydrogen production. Matthias, what's the business model? Where?
Well, I think what you're leading to is one of the most likely and close-by applications that you really have in areas where you have excess power, and that can be a factory. Just to give you an example, just this morning I talked to somebody who builds a factory in the Netherlands and has solar panels on his roof, and he produces more energy than he needs. So his idea is to run his logistics on fuel cell vehicles, and then that would be one of the applications where the energy that is produced there can directly be used on site. Mm-hmm. So that's for me one of the ways to go. Mm-hmm.
And of course, the business model, we're talking about small volume here, but is there a market? Are you budgeting for productions in smaller scale for decentralized energy production? Because we do tend to go large scale when we talk about things. Do you have a business model that addresses specifically a decentralized production and consumption of the energy produced on site, off-grid?
Well, I don't know if we can deliver the whole business model. We have the stack that can do it. Mm. So our small and medium are exactly for such applications. If you have a factory with logistics, if you have a regional distribution network, that's what we could then support. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We had this conversation, of course, in the summer. There's the Solar Power International Conference, and we also participate in that. Vaitea, I made the mistake of thinking that it's always exotic locations. There you are off in France installing things there. It sounded like a wonderful job to have, and I applied for your company. But in fact, you're at the Netherlands as well. There's a project you're doing there. So these remote applications, we don't necessarily need to be in the exotic areas. It could be an area left high and dry in the middle of the United States. What sort of business interest do you see, and from what locations in the globe for it's a purist approach to using hydrogen and renewable energy. It's everyone's dream that we're going to arrive there globally at some point, but the small scale has this luxury of being pretty.
No, absolutely. Thank you. I think what we're noticing is that everyone feels empowered and can feel empowered by hydrogen. There is an excess amount of renewables. What do we do with it? You just had this case this morning. We also had a visitor come by and she's like, oh, in Australia, I had excess energy for my brewery. What do I do with it? I'd love to run so much more just on hydrogen. So the use case and the business case for microgrids and for remote location is quickly growing. And what's very interesting about it is the different individuals and the different types of business cases. Sometimes it's a farmer or it's an individual himself. It's the customer that's coming to us saying, I have excess renewables, or I want energy independence. What can I do? How can I integrate the electrolyzer? How simple is it? How much autonomy can I have? And that's where the strengths of hydrogen really play their role. And that's where we see our electrolyzer really fitting into these use cases. Another type as well, another profile can be the system integrator. They have the experience for the renewable energy integration as well as the hydrogen. So a solar, either manufacturer himself or even a fuel cell manufacturer has the knowledge, has the integration, and sees these business cases coming up in exotic locations. But this can be just any hard to access area, whether it's hard to access for us and we need to use a helicopter like in La Réunion, where we have one of our use cases for a microgrid. A community still needs energy, and that's where we can see hydrogen being produced on site and then providing 15 days of autonomy, 30 days of autonomy. I think what we can all see is that hydrogen is absolutely scalable. It really depends what we need. Do we need more hydrogen for longer energy autonomy? Do we need to store more hydrogen and add a compressor? Do we need more energy and add fuel cells? We all have this flexibility and this strength to choose depending on what the use case is. The last profile of a partner that I wanted to bring up is also larger partners like ENGIE, for example, or EDF. Depending on the scale of the application, different types of partners can be involved, and more microgrid and remote locations can gain from energy access with hydrogen.
Metal hydrides have come and gone as a display feature. They've always been here. When we think of applications, some systems can be complicated. You know, you make the hydrogen, then you pressurize it at what, 300 bar, 700 bar. There's all sorts of mechanics around that. Metal hydrides are kind of elegant. What do you use them for? What exactly is the market for hydrogen production in metal hydrides? Is there one?
Good news and bad news. Good news, Hydra works, and it's a very nice technology called Prometheus. Bad news, economics are not there.
Okay.
So, conclusion, we definitely moved forward with using standardized mature storage technology more and more, 30 bar, and that's also the reason why we brought the electrolyzer at 30 bar, which enables a faster and more competitive storage solution. So it works, but for the sake of business case, we use more and more traditional solution. We have more than 5-6 units of Hydra deployed on several R&D projects, but to go for industrial and big volumes, standardization and volume is key. So that's the bad news for Hydra. Today we are pushing more standardized, pressurized 30 bar technology.
Okay. And one last question on the smaller scale notions. Of course, we're going to move into the big scale, and we'll quickly discover that is the easy and the most difficult topic at the same time. As soon as we approach competing with natural gas and other resources, as soon as we get away from the remote applications, the financial aspect, the existing energy grid, the existing supply of non-renewable resources, the dependency upon exports from foreign countries, all of those factors play a role. But before we go to that field, green hydrogen, Henrik, they have also on-site generation of hydrogen. What I'm interested in is there a business case, I've heard debates about this, for a fueling station for hydrogen vehicles they could be buses or individual cars, that is entirely off-grid. You do the on-site production, storage, and you attach that to a fueling station. Some people say, well, that's expensive. Other people say, no, in remote locations, it's feasible. Do you think there's a business case for that?
Yes, I do. Excuse me. We actually just installed a system in Sweden where they will take the electricity from the solar. So they do 300, 400, 500 kilowatt solar, produce the hydrogen, store it, and then dispense it to a refueling station. And it's quite simple. It all depends also, of course, the availability of renewable, the space you have, where you are, and the price of the storage. Because if you want to do a seasonal storage, because some places you have less sun in the winter, so you need really to do a bigger seasonal storage. But for me, it all starts with the consumption of the hydrogen. Because it's all about making the business case that when you have, let's say, 10 trucks or 5 buses, you can easily make the business model and calculate what it will cost. Today, if you just wait for a 700 bar fuel cell car to pass by, there will be no business case nowhere. That's why we very much focus with our partners is to follow the market where it is, follow where you actually have the consumption, and then you can decide if it will be off-grid or on-grid. But we have several projects also where they want to put up new wind turbines, but they don't want to connect them to the grid. They only want to make hydrogen. So we make hydrogen engines directly, produce the hydrogen because it's easier to transport the hydrogen and to also make the infrastructure. But again, all these cases ends up with having the application for hydrogen. So for us, producing is okay, we can do that, but the applications are more important, so there's a valid business case.
So we're going to come to the people who do large-scale things here, and I'd like to start with the obvious and easy business case, and yet the complexities. Okay, so we have people who do grid stabilization, for example. There's all sorts of curtailed renewable energy. We literally shut down the wind turbines when the grid can't absorb it. So that's a free kilowatt hour. Let's make hydrogen out of that. And then the next case is the next question: what do we do with the hydrogen? Only about 1% of the hydrogen that is consumed in industrial applications and elsewhere is produced by electrolysis. Most of it is steam reforming. But we can do electrolysis, we can produce this hydrogen, and then comes the question, what do we do with it? If we scale up the production right now, are we really going to put it into the electrical grid? We're looking for the biggest bang per kilowatt hour. That is, you want to sell it to the highest bidder. Some people say we should be marketing that for buses. What do we do if we start producing larger quantities, beginning with curtailing? Where does that hydrogen go? Who's going to take the... Bertrand? Okay, we'll pass the question on, of course, down here, and we're going to move upscale with the next few questions. Bertrand.
Business case and calculation. That's a very good moment to do that in the afternoon. So 2 comments on that. For industry, you will have usage which are a transition. What is a transition? When you are a steel manufacturer or refinery or green methanol plant, you will never go from 0 to 100% to one technology in one day. It's a question of risk management. So you will have double supply. And what will happen is probably that as the volumes for hydrogen will double in the next 10 years, and that's the main forecast that are provided by the industry, 60 million tonnes to 120 million tonnes by 2030. The new volumes will be done with the green hydrogen, and the industrial company will manage both. Simple calculation. If you buy your hydrogen with carbon capture at €2, and you paid green at 260, so 30% more. If you just take 10% of additional volume, which is green, the total of the cost is not 30%, it's 3% of the total volume. And that's an overcost that industrial company to go green can absorb. And of course, as soon as the CO2 tax will increase, this gap will reduce. So what we see is a step-by-step transition. And for industry, the business case will fly and the premier will work. And I think on power to power, we see the same. It's to switch to genset, €200 or €250 with genset to green hydrogen. So the business case exists, and they will go with market share increase. That's, I believe, the pragmatic approach that will happen.
I totally agree, but I also want to add, The conclusion for Sunfire was, after investigating of all these possibilities, that we shouldn't count on excess power only, because we have still expensive equipment, and we should look for as much as possible operational hours. Therefore, we will have a back-to-back contract with a windmill, taking everything they could produce. This should be our base for the business case. And then we are looking for the highest potential benefit, bringing carbon neutral hydrogen into the game, and which brings us to the penalties for CO2 emissions. And then we are with steel mills and with refineries, because there's the highest leverage from CO2-free hydrogen towards the final product.
Yes. Carsten.
Yeah, okay. I see today it's very difficult to find a business case with the cost. So we need a few regulations in law, I guess also in Germany. With the RED II in Europe, we are on a good way. So I guess also hopefully in Germany, in the refineries, we will have a business case starting in 21. So in the industrial part, it could be in the refineries the first step. But I also see a business case that's in my presentation, for example, in the field of mobility. But that's very difficult, but it could be even not for cars, but if it's buses or trucks. So if you have an amount of 2, 4, or even 8 megawatt production, and you need this, because I mentioned bus or trucks, because you need this amount of hydrogen every day and not a few cars a week. We have today the situation. So if you have an electrolyzer, maybe also in addition in an industrial side, then it could be, and if you have a fair price, then you can produce green hydrogen, and green hydrogen you get a good value if you go to the mobility, and then it's nearly a business case. And in addition, as I mentioned, if you go, for example, like in a refinery or another industrial area, if you add to this production, to the revenue from the hydrogen production, to get 4 or 5 euros a kilo, then you have the chance with a grid service I mentioned in my presentation. If you go, for example, to the primary market and have the chance for example, for 1 megawatt to earn 80,000 a year, you have an additional revenue. So, and if you combine these revenues and to have green hydrogen in the buses, in the trucks, this could be a business case. And in addition, so then you see it's very difficult. Sometimes it could be also with if you go with electrolyzer, also doing grid balancing, not only to the sector outside to the grid, also inside the factory, inside the industrial area, could be also very interesting. So in a few cases, you need also the electrolyzer to balance the grid, the net, the services in between this, if it's a large industrial area. So if you have all these parts combined, then it could be a business case. But it's very difficult and tricky, but it's possible today.
It's possible today. There's really, I suppose, 2 questions. I'm going to open this up for the audience very shortly, but I can't resist asking a few questions here. One of them is, according to statistics, well over 50% of the people in the audience go home and turn on the heating, and it's going to be natural gas going through a conventional natural gas burner. That does your hot water, that does your heating, and that is the lion's share of the energy budget of most people's apartments. It's not the electrical grid. Did you know that rather than burning it, which is incredibly ineffective, you could run that through a PEM cell, you could create a decentralized grid, and the argument against natural gas is really hard. That would drop, by the way, that would be 30% more effective at least, and therefore drop the emissions created through using natural gas by 30%. We don't even have the legislation to do that, and yet here we are talking about decarbonizing the industry. Okay, you see the logic there, because this is actually a business model. If you are a homeowner, buy one of those units, and all you have to do is create a little microgrid with your neighborhood, and all of a sudden you're going to save money long term on your energy bill, because electricity is really expensive here. If you're not from Germany, it's very expensive. So I suppose that's one question. How do we encourage policy changes? Because there's always this if. if includes, of course, oh, what about the traffic in your cities? What about the lung conditions of people who live in the center of Berlin, where you pay less rent because you live next to a busy street? There's all sorts of ifs involved. They're very real. They affect people's lives, but we are expecting still the miracle of policy changes, aren't we?
Yes, we do. And we don't want money. We want to have stable conditions, looking forward conditions, and a strong goal, which is Paris goals and converting that to the next level, CO2 reduction and reduction of harmful emissions. And then probably some limits or borders left and right, and freedom to operate. We don't need more.
It really is a question of rationality. For instance, if I look at your business model, Vaitea, here we have this monstrous source of renewable energy, namely the wind in the north. And literally there's gigawatts right there, and you have the number crunchers sitting down. How many wires are we going to have to hang up to send that down to where it's needed in the south of Germany? By the way, they don't want the cables hanging up in the air through their backyard, so we're going to have to bury them, which is far more expensive and far more challenging. So what are we doing? We are sending this current through the entire country, losing 30% because electrical conversions also lost efficiencies and so on and so forth. What Vaitea has is a model where you convert to hydrogen close to the source of renewable energy. There's even a debate about including electrolyzers on the facilities offshore electrolyzers that are right next to the source of energy. Why? Again, a question to you people. You already have microphones, so I'll ask you. How much does it cost to send hydrogen through a tube? You take a little bit of pressure and...
to comment, what you express is really going far in the big picture to have the energy system well balanced. First comment, yes, there are more and more players from energy field who think the long term is not to do desert tech and solar panel in Morocco, Algeria, and then bring back hydrogen. We could do that as well from the North Sea. And the long-term picture is you use the hydrogen locally in the north, but then you will have a hydrogen hub or a hydrogen board, which is a dedicated hydrogen grid, which is not a crazy investment. For Europe, I have heard about 20 billion euro investment of infrastructure to create that. It's far less than 5G or whatever investment in telecom to decarbonize with the grid, but that's a very long term. A second point, and that was the comment from Sunfire. Yes, we will need short-term support, regulation, and compensation mechanism. Remember that today we are very happy to have competitive price of electricity for solar and wind park, but the first 5 to 10 years, we had to bridge the gap and to make economics of scale, this technology benefit from a compensation mechanism, because you cannot compete with SMR technology that has decades and decades of return of
regulations could
and
mean
350 per kilowatt
penalty for pollutions or
Exactly.
benefits for not polluting. This is regulation.
So, okay, so it's regulation that will help to go accelerate the transition, and it can work.
Yeah, regulation. You're not from Paris?
Yes, I live in Paris.
Okay, yeah. What are the taxis like in Paris these days?
The taxis, we have a good fleet of taxis on hydrogen, which started with 100 and will hit 600 in 2024.
Okay.
With a consortium made of a company called the Hype Taxi, Toyota, Air Liquide, and EDEX. It's a great way to make revenues, and it's a fleet. So as we discussed about bus, taxi, it's a way to generate stable revenues for the operator and the business case fly. So it's a good way. And then you can combine, as we say, industry usage plus building plus transportation.
I mentioned taxis because, in fact, when you look at the sales prospects, the number crunchers, always trust the number crunchers, Jülich, they sit down and do the math, and they explain to us that actually you want to convert to hydrogen close to the North Sea, and then you want to sell it to bus lines in the south. But people who use curtailed industry are still willing to dump that valuable molecule hydrogen into the natural gas grid. Not the best use. I would like to open this up to the public because there's certainly people here who have questions for these incredibly knowledgeable gentlemen about where this is all going.
Hi there, thank you for the interesting presentations. Michiel Heurt from Kirion, the Netherlands. You see large-scale systems, you need the business case key stack all values possible. Hydrogen for us also has an emotional value, but it doesn't pay off. But do you see small-scale projects with a poor business case flying because people just want to have hydrogen, because it empowers people, for example, and is that being made into value in developing projects? In general.
Yeah, I can take this one because we're just doing a project in Sweden with a partner where we have 172 apartments that will completely off-grid, using the solar to make the hydrogen in the summer and electricity, of course, and then storing it and using it for heat and electricity in the winter. And this is a real-life project without subsidies that is flying or will be flying in this summer. So it's under construction right now. And what happens actually was when the company, it's apartments that are rented out, but actually the apartments because they cleared out all the apartments to renew all the apartments, and when they put them back on the market, the price went up for the renting because people really wanted to live in the new eco-friendly housing, and there's a long waiting list for people who want to rent the housing. So this shows that actually there's a willingness if somebody dares to take the first step. And this is just, let's say, one show that you can actually do it locally. You can produce and consume in good amounts because 172 apartments is starting to have a size. It's not just a trial, and we have other projects in the pipeline of this as well. So it really shows that to produce and consume locally, it starts going this way.
Yeah, absolutely. Different, similar, and some different ones as well. Yeah, absolutely. One example as well is the rural electrification project that we have in Uganda. It's using, again, the solar energy to provide energy access and energy storage. So it's really a question of what types of use cases do we want to focus on, how is hydrogen providing energy and how is it solving the need at hand. As we see here, it's an example of apartments. We also see single homes using hydrogen as for their own autonomy. We were mentioning earlier the excess energy in a certain location, but sometimes it's also an excess energy during a certain time of the year, and so that's where we see seasonal energy storage with hydrogen as a great business case. For example, places that don't have sun for 3 months of the year or more can create their hydrogen energy storage in the summer and then store it for when the sun doesn't come out in the winter. So we definitely do see a huge case for it.
Is it then in that case is also not necessarily the most economical option? I mean, operating by the grid can still be cheaper, but yeah. Again,
I think it depends on the price of electricity. How much are you producing the hydrogen for? How are you producing it from renewables, and what is the cost of the renewables? In areas, for example, in Southeast Asia, the cost of electricity from renewables is very low. Yeah. So the cost of hydrogen is quite attractive.
Yeah, so there's also, I see some other applications which is tied into the electric vehicle part. We see a lot of we got several projects where the clients, which is basically in Germany right now, they want to store the renewable energy so they can actually charge the cars when there comes a number of cars that need to be charged. Because the renewable energy, normally you cannot store it. So what they do, they convert it into hydrogen, and then they convert it back to electricity when the electrical, the Tesla or whatever comes to do a fast fill. Then the energy actually comes from the hydrogen. And that's because then they don't have to buy it from the grid. Then they can store their own renewable energy, which is produced at a good price, to actually convert and fill back into a car. And this is also an interesting way. We also have some projects in Sweden for utility companies that has a problem with high capacity of the grid. When at peak times, they don't have enough. Because also, again, a lot of electric cars, more consumers. So at peak, they need, in this part of the network, they need 75 megawatts. But they only got 72. But the base load is only 25. So what they want to do is when they're at base load, let's produce some hydrogen, let's store it, and then it's much easier to produce the 3 megawatts from the fuel cells or other source, or other way of converting the energy back to do the peak period instead of making a new infrastructure. And that's also actually kicks into it's a business model for them, because at the end of the day, it's cheaper than adding 3 megawatts at the original. So it's just things are happening because we do, let's say, a daily grid balancing, not just a second per second, but actually a daily grid balancing using the hydrogen. So it gives new opportunity, and we see the business model are there. If the equipment and the OPEX and the CAPEX are sufficiently low, it makes sense.
Netherlands would be my answer. Not only because you have a wonderful Champions League team currently, but because if I look at one of the best hydrogen plants in Europe, the one from Netherlands, I talked with Van Aert from the Delft University, you are aligning all the key success factors. North Sea, wind offshore, reconverting the gas grid with Gasunie to methane to hydrogen hub. That's why I mentioned this. The key people that explained me that, and I think that really makes sense. Leading industrial company like Shell, Gas, Nouryon, converting green chemicals, green industry, and transportation. So you are pushing the transition with all the systems, B2B, B2A, B2C, and I think it's a very good way, and other countries should also see and mutualize the best practice that you are pushing forward. So congratulations to Netherlands.
There's also an interesting point there. This, systems that are attractive, that are beautiful, or whatever. You can get Germans to sort their trash into 3 or 4 different receptacles. It's amazing. You can get them to run off to stores and look at the size of the packaging of the product before they choose their cheese, because with less packaging it's better. But they go home and they turn the lights on. They never say, "I wonder if this is a dirty or a clean kilowatt hour I'm using right now." They don't do that. But it is interesting, nevertheless, that look at this, 36% of the grid's energy right now is renewable. I think the rough statistic, somewhere around there, correct me if I'm wrong, it's close enough, yeah. Well, the question here is whether there is a difference in how nationally the debate is parsed. Let's take France. Accepted technology there for a lot of grid power is nuclear. So they don't address the grid with the same anxieties, let's say, that we do, and yet nevertheless they have these taxis running around in Paris with fuel cells. What is specific, if you look at the electrolyzer applications available in your country? Of course, it's an export commodity, so that's the next question. But in your own country, if you look at the applications for the electrolysis industry, is there a difference between the market within France and within Germany?
I guess it's better you turn, because I'm more responsible for the German market. I know a bit about the French market, but I guess he can tell better the situation in France and compare it to Germany.
Okay.
Okay. Teamwork. Yes, you're right. The electricity mix is different. However, the challenge are the same. Decarbonizing industry and transport using low carbon electricity. Whatever the mix, and that's also what is trying to do France, increasing the mix of renewable, leveraging the current asset with nuclear, which is low carbon. But the challenge is reducing carbon in industry, energy, transportation. So the metrics are different, but the principles are exactly the same. And now France is really pushing hydrogen. We were a bit a sleeping countries 5 years ago, and now we try with Germany and Netherlands, as I said, to push forward hydrogen with a nice community.
Any other national takes on this? Okay.
Maybe just one. A study has just recently been issued in Denmark based on the price of transporting electricity to the shore from the offshore contra the price of producing hydrogen locally and transporting it. And the magnitude is a magnitude of 70 in the price difference when you want to make a new one and transport electricity on shore compared to transporting the hydrogen. The hydrogen is much cheaper to transport. So more and more work is going this way. That why do you want to produce just because you did it in the old days? You could do it. You thought it was a good idea. with the new technology, it actually shows that it was probably not a good idea. Just like the fossil engine or whatever, it's not a good idea. We should never have done it, but we have to live with that. But for the future, I think things are going to change, and Denmark is also very strong, and the state of Denmark is strong in pushing the conversion into using hydrogen in different ways, putting it everywhere you can, using the natural gas networks resources that you actually have in the North Sea as well. You can easily tap into them to bring all the energy onshore.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any other questions from the audience? I suppose in the roundup, we really have to go back and talk to the individual producers and ask them specifically about their technology and where their market is. And I'd like to begin with Sunfire. Last year, I think everyone's jaw dropped when we came to this. First of all, we know that the PEM electrolysis, doesn't it remind us of a PEM cell? PEM cells use hydrogen to create electricity. PEM electrolysis, it's the other way around, but you don't see them combined. Solid oxide fuel cells are established technology. Solid oxide electrolysis was sort of a rare bird within the community. And you discussed last year a solid oxide electrolyzer that was reversible. Is there a business case for that?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we did that several times. We did that with Boeing. For a remote area, as we discussed already, using that to make a remote area independent from power access. And there might be a case for applications where the pain is very high. I don't want to mention that more, but I can't talk about that, so you know what would be the purpose for that.
Okay.
And we have started a project with Verbund AG in Austria, using the electrolyzer to produce hydrogen. And in an emergency case, they want to enable their power plants for black startup by using the hydrogen to feed it back and have the power available for emergency cases. So there are business cases with a whole pain for if you have no power available, and that's the reason for. And we should always start in such segments and then looking for the chance to get volume out of that.
And Vaitea, if I understand Enapter's business model, really the anion exchange membrane, I believe I got that right, is the cost-saving factor that makes remote energy more accessible because it's low price. Am I?
Absolutely. No, this is definitely our strongest competitive advantage. And we're happy telling you more about it at our booth in booth number 57. So come by.
Okay. Henrik, business model, and let's talk about the large perspective for you. Where are things going?
So everything is going in the right direction, luckily. We've got more and more partners that actually have projects. More and more projects are actually being worked on without looking at subsidies. So it's becoming a more and more commercial market. For us, it's more about delivering on the equipment and what we have today, make it cost effective and make it a business case for the partners. If they can get subsidies, fine. But that's not the objective. The objective is to look at business without the subsidies.
Okay. Carsten, where are the big prospects? Export?
Yeah, as I mentioned already, it's not so easy to get the business case today. So on one hand, for us, we have standard systems up to 1 megawatt. So one focus is also to get a very good price and capex and operation cost to reach this business cases. So to have a good range of products in up to 1 megawatt. And then the scale is up to the next megawatt. Then it's a new design. And as I mentioned, the flexibility, one advantage for the PEM electrolyzer is the flexibility. And we see a lot of advantages and also in products to go more into this detail. So to offer, in addition to the production, this flexibility. So even if it's for grid or for internal, regulations or grid services.
Bertrand?
The main trends for us currently are really the traction for industry players, heavy transportation, But we also see big projects for power to power. You have seen also that we are not there, but Australia is doing, and we are bidding for some projects in some Caribbean area where it's a good combination to have seasonable hydrogen storage combined with short-term storage with battery.
Wonderful. This has been enlightening. It's been an interesting new perspective on the technology, the second of two meetings here. I hope this continues. A reminder that this is 1/3 of the exhibitors here, and this is new. In the past, 3 to 5 years, you people have been the big success stories at the Hanover Fair for fuel cells and hydrogen. So thank you very much. I've been talking to Bertrand Amelot, who's EVP Sales and Marketing at McPhy, Carsten Krause, Managing Director at AREVA GmbH. Oh, I should be saying the booths. McPhy you'll see at C70, AREVA, Carsten Krause at C53, Matthias Kramer, CFO at Hoeller Electrolyzer. He's run off to take a phone call. He's at D72. Henrik, Steen, Peterson, Executive VP Sales at GreenHydrogen, D69. Vaitea, Cowan, Marketing at Enapter, D57. And last but not least, Andreas Frömmel, Vice President Sales and Marketing at Sunfire, GmbH, D46. Thank you so much for your time. It's much appreciated. And thank you all for your patience.